Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And in today's range report, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be reviewing a custom-built rifle, not by a company, but an individual. And I know that this might not interest some of you. I do know there are quite a few of you that have found my channel because of my own personal rifle builds. And you tell me, I like that idea, or the philosophy of use of that gun, or you ask me about parts lists for your own builds. And that's kind of what I want to do in a little series where I review other people's custom guns, and maybe even a few of my own. Now this is definitely a really cool build. It's an SBR, obviously it is suppressed. It's built off of a Prosper Firearms AR-10 receiver set, and it's chambered in 8.6 Blackout, which is kind of an interesting cartridge for me. I've shot it before, and I've always thought of it as a cartridge with an identity crisis because many people use the 8.6 Blackout for hunting. However, we put it in these really cool looking semi-automatic carbines, so could you use it as a self-defense rifle, a home defense rifle? 8.6 Blackout suppresses really well, so it might. So in this video, I want to go over the parts list of this gun, and I want to put it through a series of tests, both as a defensive carbine and test its accuracy at further distances, especially if you're building something like this for hunting. So that's going to be what we're doing in this video. So I hope this video gives some of you some ideas on maybe some projects that you're working on. So before we get into the parts list of this gun and obviously take it to the range, there's a few people I have to give a huge shout out to. First and foremost is the person that owns this rifle, and he did a really good job of building it with some high quality parts. He's a local fan and subscriber named Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack that has done this for the channel, so I call him Jack number 2. Yeah, I know, it's a funny name. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I could not keep this channel going without them. And if you want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, there's a link in the description below, and you get to see all these videos early. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor who provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and makes them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 8.6 Blackout. It's not a very common caliber. It's pretty popular, but not a lot of ammo manufacturers make it. So getting this ammunition is a little bit difficult and definitely really expensive. So I really appreciate Brownworks and all Mark does for my channel. And he is an amazing craftsman of custom grips. And if you own guns like Colt 1911s, Browning High Power, CZ75s, or Beretta 92s, just to name a few, and you're looking to upgrade your guns with something special and unique, you definitely have to check out Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist and craftsman. He can apply custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures, finish the grips in a wide variety of colors, make his own laminate woods, and even apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin to make these grips unique and one of a kind. Every set of grips he makes is made to order. So I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. I'm going to ask you to go over there and check out everything he has to offer. And when you place your first order of a set of Brownworks custom grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this gun. I want to give you the complete parts list, and obviously I want to test this gun in various ways to see, could it be used as a defensive carbine? Is it a good hunting rifle? Is it a good rifle overall, and how does it shoot? So let me go ahead and adjust the camera, and let's talk about what this rifle is all about. So have you ever thought about building an 8.6 Blackout carbine or rifle? And if so, would you build it for hunting, home defense, or something else? And can a gun like this fill multiple roles? Well, I guess depending on how the gun is tuned and the parts you put on it, Maybe it can and maybe it can't. I have found that 8.6 Blackout can be a little bit fidgety. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I know it's designed for very specific roles. So I'm really interested to see if a gun like this is something that you might think about building yourself. But let's talk about the parts list of this gun. First off, it's built off of a Prosper Firearms upper and lower receiver that is an AR-10 style. And they do a good job when it comes to their receivers. It's a nice blend between a mil-spec receiver and a billet receiver. So it kind of has a tacti-cool look, but everything seems to look pretty normal for an AR-10. And as such, it does take SR-25 magazines, which of course is pretty standard for modern AR-10s. Let's talk about the barrel. The barrel is a Faxon 8.6 Blackout 1 3 twist from their Duty series. It's 12 inches long and it's called the Big Gunner. It has a pistol length gas system and it is made of 4150 steel and it has a nitride finish. The gas block is an Odinworks adjustable gas block, and the handguard is a Midwest Industries 308 Combat Rail handguard. And I am a big fan of Midwest Industries handguards. I think they look really nice, and they have so many different options for your various builds. In fact, the Air Force recently selected their handguards for one of their rifles, their new survival rifle, in fact. At the front of this barrel, we have a rugged M2 muzzle brake, and for this review, we're also going to be using the rugged Alaskan 360 suppressor. Internally, this rifle has a nickel boron coated bolt carrier group and bolt. We have some Magpul furniture on this. We have a Magpul hand stop, MOE grip, and SLS stock on the back. The charging handle is a Radian Raptor, and I love these Radian Raptor charging handles because the levers on them are so large, and when you have an optic on your rifle, it's really nice to have them stick out so you can get a good purchase on them to charge the weapon. We also have some Magpul 45-degree Pro sights on it, so if you are going to be running the optic on the top but need to switch to irons, you can do that. We also have a SIG Tango MSR 1:8 by 24 scope up here on top. I actually think SIG makes some really nice scopes. The trigger we have in this is a CNC trigger, which is a Texas-made company, and it has a flat face on it. I might not be the biggest fan of the bright red, but they offer their triggers made in various colors with different trigger faces. They're really a very good company, and I'm always impressed with them when I see them at the local shows. So that's the next thing I want to test. I'm going to get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and we're going to test out this CNC trigger and see if it's any good. And when it comes to the choice of the trigger that you put in an 8.6, you really have to decide, is this going to be a home defense rifle or is it going to be a hunting and target rifle? Because if you're going to use it for hunting and target shooting, you want a light trigger. If you're going to use it for home defense, you might want something a little bit heavier. So I'm kind of curious to see what this CNC trigger is going to pull at. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure the gun is unloaded. We already have the magazine out, but we're going to visually inspect that chamber, and it looks like we are good. So now let's take a look at the initial take-up of the trigger, and there isn't one. You are already right there at the wall, and that trigger breaks like a glass rod. That is super crisp. Now let's take a look at the reset. Not long at all, and you are right back at that wall. This trigger has no take-up whatsoever, either on the initial pull or on the reset. So now let's get out the trigger gauge. Let's clear any averages, and let's actually see what this trigger measures at. I think it's going to be pretty darn light. For our first pull, we have 2 pounds, 11.9 ounces. 2 pounds, 13.5 ounces. 2 pounds, 12.3 ounces. Two pounds, 13.2 ounces. And finally, 2 pounds, 12.9 ounces, which gives us an average of 2 pounds, 12.8 ounces. That is a really light trigger, but not too light. For a target trigger, I think it hits that sweet spot. That is really nice. And normally I'm not a big fan of the flat face triggers. And so if this was my build, I might go with a curved one. But right now, as it sits, I'm pretty darn impressed with it. All right, so that's the parts list on this gun and what the trigger's all about. So now let me readjust the camera and I'll talk about all the things about this build that I like and don't like before taking it to the range. And as always, when it comes to any firearm that I have into the Texas Gun Vault for a review, I like to share with you my thoughts on the things that I like and don't like about it. But because this is a custom rifle build, I'm just going to go over the parts of this gun that I really like and the ones that I would personally change if this was my personal firearm. Now understand, this is just my personal opinion and you are free to disagree. And that is the great joy of building your own rifle. And this is just a video here to give you some ideas. You might find things you like and find things that you don't like. And if we disagree on one of these, remember, we can still be friends. Now, we're going to start at the front of this gun and talk about the things that I like. I love this handguard. I love all Midwest Industries handguards. They're just durable and very versatile. They have ones that have quad rails all around them, some that have M-LOK all around them. You have all of these different QD slots everywhere. You can find a Midwest Industries handguard for your build. I think they look really, really nice. They're tactical and minimalistic. I'm also a big fan of the Magpul furniture on this gun. And I know Magpul is very ubiquitous. Everybody uses them, almost overuses them, but they make good stuff. And they have so many different stock options, grip options. You really can go to town customizing your build. The last thing about this rifle that I really like is the choice of the Radian charging handle. If you're going to have any modern sporting rifle with a scope on top, you got to have one with some long latches on it, and you want them to be ambidextrous, and that's what you get with this charging handle. I can't tell you how many times I have pinched my fingers between the charging handle and the optic, and this is just a great way of avoiding that. But now let's talk about a couple things about this gun that I don't like. And I already told you about one of them, the trigger. Not the way it pulls, not the reset, it's the fact it has a flat face. I just want one that has a curved face to it. It just feels more comfortable to me. I can stage those triggers so much better. I never personally understood the fascination with the flat face triggers if you have a hinged trigger. Now, if you like it, that is perfectly fine. I'm just stating my personal opinion on that. I'm also not a big fan of hand stops. I personally like vertical foregrips. I told you I have rheumatoid arthritis, and so getting my hand into a hand stop like this in some shooting situations isn't always comfortable. Yes, I can move it around, but typically I never find the best place for it. And the last thing about this build I don't like is the choice of the muzzle brake. It's not the fact it's a brake, it's the fact that it's so short. Now I know that when it comes to 8.6, most of the time you're going to be running these suppressed. So it doesn't matter, but I always prefer flash hiders over the brakes. But if I am going to have a brake, I want it to be more substantial because a muzzle brake essentially acts like the initial blast baffle and it will help prevent erosion in your suppressor. But this one looks kind of weird. It's just way too short. But once again, that's just my personal opinion. So now it's time to take this gun to the range and see how it shoots. And the first battery of tests we're going to put it through is as a defensive carbine. So I'm going to try to review this like I review most AR-15s. If you built this, could you use it for home defense? So we're going to start first at the shorter distance range. And we're going to start both with this gun being unsuppressed and suppressed. And once again, we are going to be using the Rugged Alaskan 360 for this review. So let's go to the range, put the first shots through this, unsuppressed, then suppressed. We'll come back here. I'll tell you guys my initial thoughts and impressions. The other thing you need to take note is 8.6 is a very expensive caliber, so I don't have a lot of it. So I have to be very judicious in my ammo use. So I might not shoot this gun as much as I do in other reviews. So now it's time to go to the range and see how this really cool rifle build works. And I think we're definitely off to a great start with this rifle build. The cool thing about 8.6 is how soft shooting it is. If you're used to shooting AR-15s, when you get behind an 8.6, it almost feels like it's short stroking, but there's nothing wrong with the gun. It's just that soft shooting. Now, you saw the gun ran unsuppressed and suppressed. The only issue we had is on the last round of the magazine, the bolt didn't lock open, which was kind of be expected because this gas block is perfectly set for this gun to be run suppressed. So it just didn't have enough gas to completely cycle it. But I'm not too worried because if you have this gun, you're gonna run it suppressed all the time. But I was glad to see it ran unsuppressed. The gun obviously is very accurate. It's well balanced. I would just want to remove this handguard. That was really the only thing about it that was uncomfortable. But this is definitely a really, really cool gun. So now let's double the distance of this target and we're gonna see if we can put some more rounds through it in quicker succession. Now this is actually where I have found 8.6 kind of fails me with other guns. It always feels like the action of these guns move a little bit slower. Maybe it's just the 8.6 cartridge doing its thing. But let me tell you, I've had some feeding problems with other ARs in 8.6 when I try to shoot them fast. Now, I'm not going to try to do a mag dump with it right now, but we're going to try to shoot it a little bit quicker. But hopefully, this gun being perfectly tuned with this suppressor, it's going to run fine. So let's go back to the range, make sure it continues to be accurate, and make sure it continues to function flawlessly. And this is actually a problem I have experienced with bolt-action 8.6 and semi-auto 8.6 rifles in the past. There just seems to be something about the cartridge that does not want to feed from the magazines well. And unfortunately, when they do get caught on the feed ramp, it compresses the round. I brought a couple here. I have one where the projectile was pushed back into the case, and this one went so far back it is now loose in the case and all of the powder has come out. The problem with this is that these rounds are really expensive, and when this happens, essentially these rounds are ruined. So that is a little bit of a disappointment, but this is the same thing I have experienced on other 8.6 rifles. So I don't necessarily think it's this build's fault, it's more of the caliber. This just seems to be a common issue that I have personally discovered, and it is a little bit unfortunate. So it seems like when I take my time shooting this gun, it runs a lot better. And I wasn't even trying trying to shoot it that fast. So I really don't think it's the speed of how fast I'm pulling the trigger. There's just something about these 8.6s that do not want to be run fast. But I do want to give it one more chance. So we're going to go back to the range and do the mag dump test. Now, I don't really have high hopes for this, but I definitely want to put this gun through its paces. And then later, we're going to try to see how accurate it is, because I definitely think this gun is set up for hunting or target shooting. But let's go to the range. Let's see if I can do a mag dump with it and see if I can get this gun to run more reliably. And man, did we have a lot of issues, but this was to be expected. Once again, I think that the 8.6 and a semi-automatic rifle like this has an identity crisis. It looks like a tactical firearm, but let me tell you, it doesn't shoot like one. This is definitely a gun that is meant to be shot slow. So even though it looks cool and fast, it's not. And unfortunately, the faster I try to pull this trigger, the more issues we have. So we're going to slow things down from now on. We're now going to test its accuracy. So right now we're going to stay at the 25-yard range, and we're just going to see what it groups like at 25 yards. Don't worry, I know this rifle can go out way further. We're going to go out to 50, 75, and 100 yards in just a moment. But let's work our way out. So now let's set out the target at 25 yards. We're going to shoot this from the bench, and we're going to see what the best group we can get with it is. And yeah, this gun just wants to be run slow. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what the rifle is built to do. I also have to say that the tone of this suppressor is kind of surprising. I know this is not a dedicated 8.6 suppressor, but it has a higher pitch than I would expect. It is a traditionally baffled suppressor, so we do have a lot of back pressure as well. And I'm kind of noticing that from behind the gun. So I'll talk more about that when I review this suppressor in an upcoming video. But now the gun is running more reliably when I shoot it slow. So now let's move on over to the longer distance range. Let's double the distance and see what this gun groups at 50 yards. And for me as an average gun guy that normally just shoots pistols and PCCs, I'm happy with this group. The thing I really like about it is that it seems to group consistently. I've discovered that with other 8.6 rifles from very high-end manufacturers, I sometimes get 1 or 2 flyers, but I'm not getting that with this gun. I'm really impressed with this Faxon barrel, and I'm so surprised the twist rate is so fast, 1 in 3. To me, that's just absolutely crazy. I'm also really happy with how well I can stage this trigger. Even though it has a flat face, it does feel really nice. And let me tell you, there's no take up to it whatsoever. So you can really take your time and really feel like you're dialing in those shots. All right, so let's add 25 more yards to our target, and let's see what this group's at 75 yards. And this rifle is continuing to shoot very consistent for me. And I know that is not the greatest group of all time, and some of you are probably laughing at me. But remember, I'm just an average gun guy that's typically a pistol shooter. So if I was going to have this gun as a hunting rifle, I would be pretty happy. I'm pretty sure I could take down some hogs with this rifle. And that's the other thing too I like about it, is that I kind of consider myself to be a little bit modern and tactical, so I might not want to go out into the field with a traditionally wooden stocked rifle. Something like this might be right up my alley. I just have to realize it's not a defensive carbine. All right, so now let's set out the target at 100 yards. We're going to put the last of my ammo through this and just see what the best group I can get with it is at this distance. And unfortunate we had that one failure to feed, but it seems like when this gun is being shot suppressed and you are shooting it slowly, typically it runs pretty reliably. Now I might want to open up this gas block just a little bit, but to be honest with you, I love how soft shooting this gun is. So if you're only going to use this as a hunting gun or a target gun and you're not going to rush your shots, I don't think you'd have much of an issue, and I would rather have the occasional failure to feed and have the gun shoot so soft than it be a little bit more more hard on your shoulder and be able to shoot it quicker. But if you want a defensive carbine or a rifle that you can do both with, you definitely got to change a couple of things up. Overall, the accuracy was pretty good at all distances, and I know it's not the greatest group ever. You don't have to tell me I'm a terrible shot, but for me, I'm pretty happy with that. If this was going to be a hunting gun to take out hogs with, I'd be happy with it. It would suit me just fine. So what are my final thoughts on this custom 8.6 rifle build based off of a Prosper Firearms AR-10 receiver set? Well, this is definitely a solid gun. I think Jack did a really, really nice job with it. I like most of the parts he put on it. The gun is fun. It is accurate. It might be a little bit on the gassy side, especially with this suppressor, but maybe you want that with 8.6 because you want a little bit more gas coming back into the receiver to help cycle the action more reliably. And once again, I think if you decide to build a gun like this, you have to decide what its identity is. Do you want it for home defense? Do you want it for target shooting? Do you want it for hunting? Because I think you have to make quite a few decisions depending on what you want it to be. And I'm not really sure if you can tune this gun to make it a do-all 8.6. Well, maybe you could, but it would be really interesting to see what the possibilities would be. Now, even though this is a custom rifle build, I will give it a star rating on my system. So I hope I don't offend anybody with this, especially Jack, the owner. But when it comes to its overall performance as a carbine and a target gun, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. Pretty good, pretty good. Now, I would like to see it run a little bit better, especially if I'm going to shoot it at a quicker tempo. I'm not asking for this gun to be able to be shot full auto or to do a bunch of bag dumps with it, but I would like to be able to shoot it quicker without all of those failures. But overall, a solid build, really nice. And this is a gun that I think if you're going to build out in 8.6, once again, you have to decide what you're going to do with it. So tell me in the comments section below, what do you think about the parts on this gun? What do you think about 8.6? Do you think this is a cool build? And would you change anything about it? And if so, tell me in the comments section. But that's the joy of building AR rifles. We can all do it our own way. So, as always, thanks for watching.